The grand halls of the university were quiet, save for the rhythmic echo of Barron Trump's footsteps. He had been in heated debates before, but never one quite like this. Professor Langley was no ordinary academic. He was a man known for his sharp mind, brutal honesty, and utter lack of tolerance for those who came unprepared. Mr. Trump, Langley said, folding his hands together as he leaned forward, you claim to seek the truth, but do you truly wish to learn? Or are you simply looking for validation of what you already believe? Barron felt the weight of the words press down on him. He had walked into this office prepared to prove himself. Instead, he had been challenged in a way he hadn't expected. Truth is not about comfort, Langley continued. It's about facing reality, even when it contradicts everything you stand for. Barron held his breath. He had come here expecting a lesson. Instead, he was being forced to question everything he thought he knew. As Barron left Langley's office, his mind was clouded with unanswered questions. He barely noticed the tall figure ahead until he accidentally bumped into him, sending a stack of books crashing to the ground. Sorry, Barron said quickly, bending down to pick up the fallen books. The man in front of him, around his early 30s with dark brown hair and light stubble, studied him with piercing eyes. He had a rugged look, dressed in a leather jacket that made him seem more like a journalist than a professor. No worries, the man said, collecting his books. You seem distracted. I saw you leaving Langley's office. Tough guy. Barron nodded, still shaken. Yeah, he is. But he made some good points. The man smirked. If you can admit that, then you might just be worth talking to. Barron hesitated. Who are you? Elijah Carter, the man said, extending his hand. Researcher in history, but more importantly, someone who looks for the truth. Something about the way he said it made Barron pause. What do you mean by that? Elijah glanced around as if making sure no one was listening. Then he gave Barron a knowing look. If you're really interested in the truth, meet me in the library tonight. There are things I can show you, things you won't hear in a lecture hall. Barron's heart pounded. He had come here searching for knowledge. Now it seemed like he was about to find something far more significant than he had anticipated. Night fell, and the Grand University Library stood in eerie silence. Barron made his way through the dimly lit corridors, his footsteps muffled by the thick carpets. As he reached the back of the library, he spotted Elijah waiting near an old wooden table covered in dusty books. You actually came, Elijah said with a grin. That's a good sign. Barron folded his arms. I want to know what you meant earlier. What truth are you talking about? Elijah slid a thick leather-bound book across the table. The kind that doesn't make it into history books. Barron hesitated before opening it. The yellowed pages contained faded notes, scribbled theories, and official documents that looked decades old. What is this? Barron asked. Elijah leaned in, lowering his voice. Proof that power is rarely what it seems, and that those who control the past control the future. Barron felt a chill run down his spine. He had expected a simple discussion. Instead, he had just stepped into something much bigger. Over the next hour, Elijah revealed a series of documents and reports that suggested history had been manipulated, key events altered or covered up. Barron was skeptical. If this is true, why hasn't anyone exposed it? Elijah smirked. Because knowledge alone isn't enough. You need influence. You, of all people, should understand that. Barron stiffened. He knew exactly what Elijah was implying. You want me to use my name, Barron said carefully. Elijah shrugged. You could be a voice that makes people listen, or you could walk away and pretend none of this ever happened. Barron exhaled sharply. He had always avoided politics, but this wasn't just politics. It was about something deeper, something that could change everything. For the first time in his life, Barron felt like he was standing at a crossroads. As Barron left the library that night, his mind was racing. But he wasn't the only one who had taken notice of the meeting. From the shadows, a figure observed him carefully. A phone screen flickered in the darkness as a message was typed. He took the bait. A reply came instantly. Watch him. If he goes too far, shut it down. Barron had no idea that he had just stepped onto dangerous ground. Barron sat in Professor Langley's office, staring at the worn wooden desk between them. The air was thick with unspoken tension. You met with Elijah Carter, Langley repeated, his voice even but firm. Barron swallowed hard. Yes, I did. Langley sighed, rubbing his temples. I told myself this would happen eventually. Barron frowned. Why? What's wrong with him? Langley leaned forward, his sharp eyes locking onto Barron's. Carter is brilliant, no doubt about that. But brilliance without wisdom is like fire in dry grass. It spreads recklessly, destroying everything in its path. Barron shifted in his seat. But he's just trying to uncover the truth. Langley let out a dry chuckle. Ah, the truth. Everyone thinks they want it until they realize how heavy it is to carry. He picked up an old leather-bound book from his desk, flipping through its pages. Carter believes the truth is a weapon. He thinks if he can expose enough of it, the right people will listen, and the world will change. Barron crossed his arms. Isn't that a good thing? Langley's gaze darkened. Not if he underestimates the forces that don't want the world to change. There was a pause. Barron's heartbeat quickened. Are you saying someone's trying to stop him? Langley hesitated. Then with a grave expression, he said, I'm saying that powerful people don't let someone like Carter operate without consequence. And if you keep following him, you won't be exempt from those consequences either. Barron exhaled slowly. He had come here for answers, but now he only had more questions. Do you trust him? Barron finally asked. Langley was silent for a long moment. Then with a voice barely above a whisper, he said, I trust that he believes he's doing the right thing. But belief isn't the same as wisdom. Barron felt a shiver run down his spine. He wasn't sure if it was from Langley's warning or the realization that, deep down, he wanted to see where Elijah's path would lead. Barron found Elijah sitting at their usual spot in the library, flipping through a thick file of documents. You went back to Langley, Elijah said without looking up. Barron hesitated before answering. Yeah, he warned me about you. Elijah finally looked up, a smirk playing on his lips. Let me guess. He told you I'm reckless? That I don't understand what I'm up against? Barron nodded. More or less, Elijah chuckled, leaning back in his chair. Langley's a smart man, but he's also a man who's been in the system too long. He thinks that playing it safe will protect him. The truth is, safety is just an illusion. Barron frowned. And what about you? What do you think will happen if you keep pushing? Elijah's expression darkened. I think that if we don't push, nothing will ever change. He slid a document across the table. Barron hesitated before picking it up. It was an old government report, sections blacked out with heavy redactions. Do you know what this is? Elijah asked. Barron scanned the page. The words that weren't blacked out spoke of a long-buried case, something involving classified operations and media manipulation. This is proof that history is rewritten by those who have the power to do so, Elijah said. And people like Langley, they don't fight it. They just learn to live with it. Barron clenched his jaw. So what do you want me to do? Elijah leaned forward. I want you to make a choice. You have influence. People will listen to you. If you're willing to help expose this, we can change the narrative. Barron hesitated. He knew what Elijah was asking of him. He wasn't just asking him to learn the truth. He was asking him to use it. But Langley's words echoed in his mind. Brilliance without wisdom is dangerous. For the first time, Barron realized that this wasn't just about facts and documents. This was about trust. And he wasn't sure yet who deserved his. Barron barely slept that night. His mind replayed his conversations with Langley and Elijah, weighing their words like pieces of a puzzle that refused to fit together. By morning, he had made his decision. As he walked back toward the library, he saw Elijah waiting for him, leaning against a bookshelf with his arms crossed. No turning back after this, Elijah warned. Barron met his gaze, his heartbeat steady. I'm not looking back. Elijah studied him for a moment, then nodded. All right, then let's get started. He led Barron to a secluded section of the library where an old dust-covered file cabinet sat against the wall. He pulled out a key and unlocked it, revealing stacks of aging documents. This, Elijah said, pulling out a thick file, is where the real history is kept. Barron took a deep breath and reached for the file, but just as he opened it, a voice cut through the silence. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Barron's head snapped up. Standing in the dimly lit aisle was a man in a suit, his expression unreadable. Elijah tensed beside him. Who are you? The man ignored him and turned to Barron. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into. Barron's grip on the file tightened. Then why don't you explain it to me? The man sighed, stepping forward. I don't think you understand. There are forces at play here that neither of you are prepared for. If you keep digging, you're going to find yourself in a situation you can't walk away from. Elijah scoffed. Is that a threat? The man smiled. Number. It's a warning. Barron's heart pounded. He had spent his whole life being careful, staying away from controversy. But now, for the first time, he felt the pull of something bigger than himself. The truth was close. He could feel it. The question was he willing to pay the price to uncover it? Thank you for watching. Today we explored the intense confrontation between Barron Trump and Professor Langley. Is the truth ever as simple as it seems? Is knowledge a source of power or a dangerous burden? Your thoughts matter to us. Share your opinions in the comments below. If you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Stay tuned for more thrilling stories. See you in the next video. Keep uncovering the truth.